Well, welcome back to Shane's DIY. Today's episode, going to upgrade the ESC in my AeroScout. This is the AeroScout that I've completely unlocked, but flaperons programmed into it. The older AeroScout, which is what this is, just came with a standard ESC, and you don't even have the ability to get in and program it. I've contacted Hobbyzone, and they won't give any information on how to reprogram it. If any of you have flown these, or if you've seen my other videos, you know that it's got a quite a delayed acceleration of the motor, so it takes a little bit for it to spool up. The new AeroScouts come with the Avian Smart ESC, Avian Lite they call it, and this one here is the 30 amp version, which is the one that comes standard. It's actually listed as a spare part for the latest AeroScout, which I didn't get this one, so I'm basically upgrading my AeroScout to use the latest ESC for it. And I haven't seen any reviews. The information seems very limited. I don't find any reviews on the Lite series of Avian ESCs. They don't even list a manual for this ESC, actually. It's kind of odd, but I'm going to assume that the setup matches the larger ones, but I don't know for sure. I have experimented already with the TextGen Programming, basically the forward programming version for the ESCs, and that does work. One thing that's kind of odd, when you look at these, the label here says Avian 30 amp Smart Brushless ESC, and it says 3S to 6S version B. But then you look right on the actual ESC, on the ESC it says 3S to 4S. Then you look at the advertisement on the web page, and it says 2S to 4S. So there's a lot of conflicting information on exactly what the size is, but I'm going to trust what's on the actual ESC, which says 3S to 4S. So, which is another upgrade feature. You can use 4S on these airplanes now. You could before, but you're going to risk burning stuff up. This ESC is actually rated for up to 4S, so we could use the 4S batteries in these airplanes, which is nice. Here's the part number on the back, SPMX-AE30B. It doesn't come with much. Says free brand swag. They did send you some stickers for what it's worth, but there's no manual. That's it. That's all it comes with. One thing that has been confusing to a few people, when you get your new AeroScout and some other planes that have these light ESCs, it's got this random rogue yellow wire on it that nobody can seem to identify. I've even contacted Hobbyzone. I'm not sure if they'll watch my little videos, but if they do, get your support people to provide information when they're requested. I contacted them. I asked what this yellow wire was for, and I happened to mention that I'd noticed it on the new AeroScouts, and their response was, it doesn't matter on the AeroScout. That's all they said. They wouldn't tell me what the wire is for. In a little bit of research, now I'm not certain of this because I don't have the Spektrum ESC or Avian programmer, but my understanding is the yellow wire plugs into the ESC input on the Spektrum Avian programmer, and then this one would plug into the power plug on the programmer, and of course you'd hook this up to your battery. But that'll let you get in here and do the setup for this with the programmer. That's my understanding. That makes the most sense. On the Facebook groups, a bunch of people are trying to say this is the RPM signal wire. Other people are saying that you plug that in to plug it into an available channel to activate reverse. That's not correct. So I think people need to quit presuming things and stating them as fact. But anyway, let's get this thing plugged in. I'm not going to do the permanent installation on this video. I want to keep it short as possible. But I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to get in there and show you how to do it. This is going to allow us to put reverse thrust on the AeroScout. Get quicker response times and use 4S batteries. So this is going to be a cool upgrade. Alright, so here's my AeroScout. The stock ESC is underneath the receiver. There's two zip ties here on either side of the receiver that you can see. Those have got the ESC strapped on the bottom side of this wooden board under the receiver. The wires come up through this hole. I've already unplugged the 3 ESC wires. Here's the 3 wires from the motor. Right here you've got the signal wire that goes into channel 1. Battery wire comes out this direction for plugging in the battery. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug the servo wire from channel 1. I'm just going to set this up here for now. In most applications, the yellow wire won't be used for anything. Like I said, I believe it's for the Avian programmer. I don't have one. Anybody wants to send me one, I'll be happy to try it for him to prove it. But I'm going to use the TextGen editor on my Radiomaster transmitter to set that up. If you have a computerized Spektrum transmitter, of course it should have that capability as well, anything modern. Alright, so I've got that connected. I'm going to get the motor wires connected up. Now it doesn't matter which way you go initially. If you have to reverse the direction, you just swap a couple of the leads. I'm just going to plug these in any order. Okay, so I've got my 3 motor wires connected. I've got the signal wire connected to channel 1. Yellow wire is not connected to anything. Alright, get my transmitter turned on. Alright, I've got my model selected. Throttle at 0. Throttle cut is on. So, you may or may not need to calibrate the throttle. If you do, you have to put it at full throttle when you power it up, wait for it to beep, and then you reduce it to minimum throttle. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's see what it does. Just right out of the box. Power up the battery. Okay. I have noticed there's some different beeps coming from this ESC. If you didn't know it already, those beeps you hear when you boot it up are the motor making sound, and that's coming from the ESC. Let's check and see my rotation first. We'll remove the throttle cut. Alright, so right now it's going backwards. So if you're not sure, unplug it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to unplug and swap 2 of these motor legs. Doesn't matter which 2. Okay, let's try it again. Make sure it's going the right direction. Okay, it is. Now the motor's spinning the right way. Let's see how it does with full throttle. Definitely got the immediate throttle response I was hoping for, so that's a huge improvement. Seems like I'm getting good full throttle. So now let's jump in and do the Avian setup. Alright, now if you're using a Spektrum transmitter, you'll just need to go through the menus and access your Avian ESC. I believe on the Spektrum you just roll the wheel to the right to get to the Avian menu. For this Radiomaster on the EdgeTX, I'm going to hit the System button, and then I've got DSM Smart RX Telemetry Lua script. I'm going to hit that, and then that brings up our telemetry and Smart RX settings. So if we go down here to TextGen, we're going to bring that up. It walks through the steps. Now this part of it's going to be the same if you've got a Spektrum transmitter. These menus are actually coming out of the ESC, but so step 1, you got to go to minimum throttle, up elevator, left aileron. But you have to do that. It doesn't say it on here, but you have to do that within the first 30 seconds of powering up the battery. So let me unplug and plug in the battery, and then we'll jump back in here. So now I've got minimum throttle. I'm going to go up elevator, left aileron. After about 5 or 10 seconds, it's going to tell you. Now I'm going to go to right aileron. Then we'll watch the menu. Okay, now we're in the menu. Now to navigate this, you go up and down with the elevator stick. So I'm going to go down like this and watch. You can see the selection changing. So there's a number of things you can edit in here. Brake type is the one thing we're interested in. Now if I go right aileron, you can see the menu changes. I go left aileron, I can go back. So disabled, normal, proportion, reverse. That's what we're looking for. Now when you use reverse, you also want to turn on the brake. Not absolutely required, but what will happen is if you don't have the brake turned on and you go down to minimum throttle, prop could still be spinning forward, and then you hit reverse, and you're going to be reversing the direction of that motor while it's moving, and that's really hard on things. So it's recommended in the manuals for the other ESCs that have manuals for them, the standard Avian ESCs, to set the brake force. So I'm going to go right aileron. It says to set it for 7, which is the highest number. I'm just hitting right aileron to select these. If I go further, then it goes back to 0. I could go left aileron and go right to 7. So I'm going to put it at 7. And what that does, it should, when I go to 0 throttle, it should immediately stop the prop from spinning. So then if you go to reverse, it won't be spinning at that point. It'll actually hold it in place. Alright? So and I'm going to go down, or excuse me, up elevator to navigate through. There's page 2. LiPo cells, auto calc, so it's going to, one other thing this is going to add for me that we'll get into, and I'll show you a little bit. It adds a whole bunch of telemetry values I didn't have before. Battery voltage per cell, as well as the flight battery, which is really cool. Cutoff voltage, BEC voltage, startup time. I'm not going to mess with any of this stuff. I guess even without messing with the wires, if you didn't want to, you could reverse the motor direction like this, but I'm going to leave it on clockwise because that's the way it is. If I'm looking at the back of the plane, it spins clockwise. Active FW, I don't know what all these things are, but I'm sure you can find them. None of them are that relevant to what we need to do here. Okay, the other thing we want to mess with is the reverse thrust channel. Whichever channel it comes on, you can set this to pretty much any channel you want. I'm going to go ahead and use channel 7 is my safe channel on this one. I'm going to set this to channel 8. Whoops. There you go. I had to go back and forth a little bit. So I'm going to use channel 8. Then we're going to go down to save and exit. Now I'm going to hit right aileron again. Okay. Now it's reprogrammed. Now I haven't set up channel 8 yet. I am going to do something kind of clever with my momentary button. What normally what they do is you have it set to a switch, and then when you want to go reverse, you land. Like when you're coming into land, you have to throw a switch. You know, whichever switch you pick, flip it to the reverse, and then you got to give it throttle again. I don't want to have to do that on landing. I think the ideal situation would be you just go to 0 throttle, and then I just want to hit my in my case it's F button that I've converted to momentary. Standard, they come over here with, this is your momentary switch. I've moved mine, but I want to use a momentary switch, and what I'm going to do is set it to where when I hit that switch, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to be in some programming logic. I'll use logical switches and some special functions. So when I hit that switch, the first thing I want it to do is activate reverse with channel 8. Then based on my testing on the simulator on real flight, because I set this up on real flight, but pull the switch. It's going to, first thing it's going to do is enable the safe channel, or excuse me, first thing it's going to do is enable the reverse channel, so channel 8 in my case. It's going to wait about a half a second, and then it's going to override the throttle channel automatically to whatever throttle level that I want. So when I land, all I have to do is pull this switch. It'll activate reverse, wait a half a second, and then it's going to give it, perhaps full throttle in reverse to stop the plane. So basically that's my brake. All I have to do is land, pull that, and it's going to hit the brakes. Now in our DSM Smart menu, now that we've got this ESC control, we'll actually have some telemetry data. But if I look at it, you see there's no data yet in our ESC telemetry information because we haven't gone into the model telemetry area and captured that yet. Let's see if we have anything else. Yeah, so nothing's been captured yet. So let's exit out of this. Now we'll go into the model, go back to the telemetry. So you can see what we need to do is go in and do Discover New. So we'll select this. Now you can see it's gone through and it's capturing all these telemetry values. So A2, that looks like that's probably, number 7 there, that looks like it's probably the receiver voltage. You can see now we have, because I have a smart battery in there, I've got the cell voltages for all 3 cells. It's a 3S battery. So I got 3.75 volts. It tells me what flight mode I'm in. So it says I'm in mode 1, AS3X level. That's safe mode. So if I flip my safe switch here,
medium rate.
now it's my envelope mode. It's got bank limits but not self-leveling. And then if I go to mode 3,
High rate.
that's just AS3X only. So yeah, you got that information now via telemetry. That's cool. Keep going down. There's a lot of cryptic information. I don't know what that stuff is. EVIN, that looks like there's our full voltage for our flight pack, so that's nice. You could use that with some logical switches and special functions to create some voltage alarms. Temperatures of the MOSFETs or something. I got some amperages. So you can see there's a lot of information now that we get via telemetry, now that we've got the Avian Smart ESC. So I'm going to stop that collection so it's not going to keep looking. Now we exit out of that. We'll go back into the DSM Smart Telemetry, and now we'll see we've got data populated. I can go to ESC status. Now I've got information in there. If I ramp up the throttle, let me put my foot in front of the airplane. So I've got some data there, so that's nice. All right. Now, for me to get my reverse channel to work, for now I'll just do a simple setup. Let's go into the model, go over to my mixes, and I'm going to scroll down. I need to turn on a channel 8, assign it to a switch. Now I'm going to do some more creative logic for this, but for now I just want to add channel 8. I need to pick a switch for it. I can call it something. Let's call it reverse. Let's call it RAV for now. Assign it to a switch. For now, I think I'm just going to throw it up here on S. Just put it on SB. Flip that switch. Now when I do that, it selects it down here. Okay, so now when I flip my SB switch, I can see it actuating that. Now let's check and see if it's actually reversing the motor. Alright, so I'm going to give it some throttle. Right now we're still in forward, I think. Yeah, so it's spinning. I'm looking from the front counterclockwise, but that's propelling it forward. Now I'm going to flip the reverse button. And I believe either one of these positions is going to take me backwards. Okay, it's backing up. So reverse is working. Alright, so in this basic, really simple configuration, either one of these, middle or down, is going to give me reverse thrust. When I'm all the way up, that's forward. Okay, so I'll do some more clever logic for that, show you how I'm doing that, but on the basic level, it's done. Another thing we can watch is that brake to see how quickly the prop stops. I'm going to put my foot in front of it again. See how prop stops pretty quick. And if I go down there and push on the prop manually with my hand, it should have resistance. And it does. If I spin it, it doesn't spin like it used to. It stops. So I've got prop braking. So one thing you want to avoid is flipping it in reverse while your throttle is up. So I can give it some throttle and throw it in reverse. It will work, but it doesn't sound good. It sounds pretty hard on the motor, so you don't want to do that. So you want to get it down to 0, then throw it in reverse and then go. And then the brake helps you out. So I'm going to automate that with my switch, but there you have it. You see how simple that is to get set up on a basic level. I'm gonna now you've got reverse thrust, more telemetry, 4S compatibility. So it's a nice little upgrade. Obviously, some people could put a larger ESC on here even than that. I like the small one, the Lite, and plus I wanted to do a review. A lot of people have been asking about that yellow wire and some more detail on these little small Avian Lite ESCs, so I wanted to do a review on that. So now if you want to stick around, I'm going to do a little bit of a session on the control logic I'm going to use to set up the automated button to activate my reverse thrust, so I can basically make it quicker. Brian Phillips RC did this. He's calling it pilot fatigue is how he called it, where you just hit a button and do reverse. Call it whatever you want, but I just want to automate a button. My control logic's going to be a little more involved, I think, because I'm going to put some delays in there to make sure that it makes it transitions safely from forward to reverse with the proper timing between the events. It makes it much simpler. It's very unintuitive to flip it into reverse and then on landing then add throttle to it. Alright, let's set up the logic for that, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Alright, let me show you what I've done here with my logic. Now at the moment I still have my SB switch controlling channel 8, but I've also programmed my SF switch with some logic. So let me show you what I've done here. Let's go into my model setup. Now first I'll go over to my logical switches. Pardon my logic switches here, I've got a lot of stuff going on. Alright, so L20 and L21, doesn't matter what logical switch you're using, I just happen to use those because obviously I've got a bunch of stuff going on up here. First, what L20 does, I'll go and edit that. I'm using A is less than X, and then I have V1 as my throttle, and this can be whatever number, but what this first bit of logic does is basically ensures that the throttle is less than -80. I want to make sure I've got the throttle down before it allows me to hit this switch and then reverse thrust and go maximum or whatever power I'm doing. So this is kind of a safety to make sure I've got roughly almost zero throttle before I hit the button. So my SF switch is going to be pulled, and I hold it, and the throttle's got to be less than -80 for L20 to turn on. So let me demonstrate that real quick. I'll pull that, and if you watch the L20, if I have the throttle up, let me get it up against my stopper there. Okay, so if my throttle's up and I pull the button, so I'm pulling my SF switch right now, and it doesn't do anything. I've got to have the throttle below -80, so that's a safety. But now if I do it, if I pull the switch, because my throttle's at 0, see, instantly my L20 turns on. Now let me go back. Let me show you what L21 does. L21 is an A equals B, and it's looking at L20. So first it wants to make sure that I've actually pulled the button and that the throttle is at a minimum. And it's comparing that to max, which is plus 100. And then it waits 0.7 seconds before it turns on. So if you watch that, and I pull the SF switch, as long as the throttle's at 0, 0.7 seconds later, L21 will turn on. So watch that. Let me see if I can get it into view, and I'll pull the switch and watch for that to illuminate when I pull the switch. So you can see it took it 0.7 seconds. Now let me show you what I've done on my special functions. Again, I got a lot of special functions in here. Ignore these. Okay, we'll get up to SF30 and 31 in my case. Okay, so the first one is SF30. First thing we're doing here is I'm looking at L20. That's the one that turns on when I pull my SF switch, as long as I've got the throttle down. So immediately when I pull my throttle switch up, as soon as I pull it, so you can see it, as soon as I pull it, SF30 turns on. Okay, that's overriding channel 8 to a value of plus 100, so that enables the reverse thrust. Okay, that's all that one does. If I back out of that, now I go to SF31. This one is looking at L21. That's the one that doesn't turn on until 0.7 seconds later. Then I override channel 3, which is my throttle. I currently have it set at a value of -50, which isn't very much. But so now watch. If I pull my SF button, 0.7 seconds later, it's going to go into reverse thrust at -50. If I hold it, the plane will back up. Not very fast because I got it at a low throttle, but so watch, if I go in there and edit that, let me even make it lower. this is where you would establish how much reverse thrust you want. So if I put it down really low, let me pull the button. Okay, so that put my reverse on. I'm holding SF. Now if I adjust this, this will determine how much reverse thrust I get. Let me move it forward again. Okay, now I'm back up. Now if I go back to reverse thrust, now I can increase this. See how much reverse thrust I want? Now ideally, if you're trying to stop the plane on landing, you're going to crank this up, probably 50 at least, but maybe even 100. So let me go to 100. Hopefully my plane doesn't launch. Okay, so now I'm going full throttle reverse thrust when I pull this SF switch. So let's watch what that does. So yeah, you can see that's going to give me a lot of reverse thrust. Now one note here of caution, make sure your prop's on tight. When that goes in reverse, it doesn't have the natural torque tightening the prop like it normally does when it's running. So when you hit reverse, you could unwind your prop and loosen that nut up. So be careful with that. I'm not sure I want to use 100. I might drop it down to say 50 or 75 and see how much reverse thrust I actually need to slow this plane down, but anything's going to help. Let me drop it down to 50. That's still quite a bit. So there's the logic. So I just want to be able to hit a button, hit the brakes. This is a cool upgrade. These Avian ESCs are pretty neat. I love the ability to do reverse and get some braking out of this thing. Plus if you have it on floats, now you can maneuver better in the water. I don't have floats. I don't really have much water around to even try the floats on out in the middle of the desert. In the newer AeroScout manual under the smart telemetry section, it says to get the RPMs to read accurately, you have to set the motor pull count in telemetry. Now, I don't know if we have that ability yet with the TextGen app in the Radiomaster. I'm going to check with the developers and see if I can figure that out. It says it uses a 14-pole motor, so I don't yet know where that is in here, if it's even possible. Anybody knows that, go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'm going to check in with the developer, Frankie. I've referenced him in a few videos. Let's see if we can figure that out and make sure we get an accurate RPM count, because that'd be kind of interesting bit of information. Now you're probably going to want to add some voice information to the reverse. So just real quick on that, I would create a special function on L21 in my case. So when L21 turns on, I want to play a track. I don't know if I have which track I have. I might have to create a custom one. So let me see what that says. Stop. Just says stop. See if we can find something better. Brake on. Brakes on. Yeah, you could use something like that. But you can make your own. I got a bunch of them I've made. I never had created that one yet, apparently. So for now I'm going to use brake on. And then if you don't want it to say that when you first boot up the transmitter, change this to exclamation point. Alright, I hope this is helpful for you guys. Any comments, put them in the comment section below. I think this is a really cool upgrade if you've got an older AeroScout. If you've got a new AeroScout, definitely get in there and add that reverse thrust. AeroScout can sometimes land kind of long compared to some other planes. I've got some shorter fields where I fly sometimes. I got one that's way out in the desert, and I've got virtually unlimited space, but I got a little field across the street that I fly at sometimes. But space is a little limited, so it'd be cool to have reverse thrust. I'm excited to try it out over there and do some tests to see how much shorter I can land. It'll also be interesting if anybody watched my flapper on test. I'm curious how much quicker I can take off with this ESC, where I've got the immediate thrust. I think I can shave another foot or two off my takeoff distance, so that'll be pretty neat. Alright, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, it's been helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with others. So take care.